Camo sits at his desk, his pen gliding across a page of neatly drawn formulas. The classroom hums faintly with distant chatter, but his focus remains unwavering. A friend lingers nearby, glancing at Camo's growing stack of study materials. The friend remarks on Camo's relentless efforts, subtly acknowledging the pressure that comes with aiming for an esteemed college. Camo offers no denial, his silence laden with quiet determination. The friend, sensing no need for further words, bids him farewell. As the classroom door creaks shut, the calm air shifts. Camo's senses sharpen. A subtle rustling at the door pulls his attention, light footsteps, tentative but calculated. He does not need to look up to know who it is. His pen stills as a familiar presence edges closer, her movements tinged with mischief. Katabami steps into the room, her long hair swaying as she tiptoes between desks. She exudes an air of playfulness, a predator savoring the approach to her unsuspecting prey. But Camo isn't unsuspecting. His posture remains calm, but his gaze flicks toward her reflection in the window. He knows exactly what she plans. Katabami leaps, aiming to startle him, but Camo shifts deftly to the side. Her hands land awkwardly on his desk, and she nearly tumbles forward, catching herself at the last moment. A laugh escapes her, light and carefree, but Camo's expression remains unamused. She accuses him of avoiding her, her tone teasing but edged with a hint of genuine curiosity. Camo responds coolly, pointing out that she should know by now he won't play into her games. He urges her to move aside, but Katabami lingers, her defiant grin widening. There's a history between them, tangled and complicated. Camo sees her not only as a persistent nuisance, but also as a remnant of his childhood, a figure he cannot seem to shake, no matter how much he tries. Perhaps it is her carefree nature that grates against his serious demeanor. Or perhaps it is because she is a shape-shifting fox, unbound by the rules that weigh on him. Katabami shifts seamlessly into her fox form, her amber eyes glinting with delight. She sprawls across his desk, her fluffy tail flicking provocatively. Her challenge is wordless but clear. If he wants her gone, he will have to remove her himself. Camo's jaw tightens. Memories surface of her antics over the years, chasing him with bizarre objects, using her powers to stage elaborate pranks, and leaving him to clean up the chaos before anyone notices. Frustration boils over. He grabs her tail, his grip firm but not harsh, and warns her against showing her fox traits in school. His voice carries an edge, not of anger but of exasperation laced with concern. If someone catches her, the consequences could spiral out of control. Yet, as always, Katabami brushes off his words with infuriating ease, her laughter dancing through the air. Camo takes a deep breath, reining in his irritation, and demands once more that she stop disturbing him. Katabami, in turn, calls him boring, her tone light but her eyes searching for cracks in his composure. He stands firm, knowing that indulging her even slightly will embolden her further. He tells her to leave if she has no purpose here, his tone resolute. Feigning compliance, Katabami hops down from the desk, her fox form melting back into her human guise. She stretches lazily, making a show of her departure. As she reaches the doorway, she throws a final remark over her shoulder, her voice dripping with feigned disappointment. Camo watches her go, the weight of her lingering presence clinging to the air. He knows her well enough to suspect that this is far from over. Finally, the classroom settles into silence, the absence of her lively energy leaving a strange void. Camo leans back in his chair, his pen still in hand, yet his thoughts remain restless. Katabami left too easily, and he knows her well enough to suspect mischief. He stands, his gaze sweeping the empty hallway beyond the door. There is no trace of her, not a swish of hair, not the flick of a mischievous tail. Perhaps, for once, she really did leave. Camo exhales, shaking his head. He convinces himself that he is overthinking it, that he has grown too accustomed to being on edge around her. It is not as if he hates her. Dealing with her constant antics is simply exhausting. Yet guilt gnaws at him. She doesn't mean harm, and he wonders if his sharp words earlier were too much. Maybe he should try giving her a little more attention tomorrow. Distracted by his thoughts, he pulls out a drink from his bag, a bottle emblazoned with the image of a fox. The irony doesn't escape him, and a wry smile tugs at his lips as he twists the cap open. Before the sound of the seal breaking even fades, a familiar presence emerges beside him, swift and startling. He barely has time to react before her sudden appearance causes him to stumble, their proximity closing and heartbeat. His lips brush her cheek, an accident born of her timing and his lack of readiness. The warmth lingers for a fleeting moment, his breath catching as his brain processes what just happened. Katabami, as expected, doesn't let the moment slide. Her teasing voice cuts through the air, light and playful, as she mocks him for being naughty. Heat rushes to his face, but Camo keeps his expression carefully neutral, refusing to let her antics win. He begins packing his belongings, his movements quick and precise. He announces with an air of finality that studying at school is impossible with her around and decides to go home. Katabami, ever persistent, follows him like a shadow. She suggests detours to distract him, karaoke, a park, even a crayfishing trip, but Camo is steadfast. He keeps walking, his refusal firm yet calm. She pouts theatrically, throwing out one idea after another, but he has long learned to prepare for moments like these. From his bag, he produces a small treat designed for foxes, its packaging shiny enough to catch her attention. Her amber eyes widen with excitement, her tail flicking before she remembers his earlier warnings. Camo raises a brow, holding the treat just out of reach, and tells her to hide her ears and tail if she wants it. Begrudgingly, she complies, the faint shimmer of her transformation restoring her fully human guise. He tosses her the treat, and as she catches it, he takes the opportunity to finally slip away. The streets are quiet as he walks home, the soft glow of the setting sun painting the horizon in hues of orange and pink. Camo takes a moment to stop by a bench, letting the cool breeze sweep through his thoughts. He feels a small sense of triumph, thinking he has outmaneuvered her at last. But as he rests, his mind drifts back to the accidental kiss. The memory flares unbidden, and he finds himself recalling the softness of her cheek, the faint warmth that lingered for just a moment too long. He shakes his head, scolding himself silently. He cannot let himself be swayed. Katabami is a vixen in every sense of the word, and he knows better than to fall for her tricks. Yet even as he resolves to let the incident go, a familiar voice breaks through his thoughts. She is there again, perched atop a low street wall like she belongs in every corner of his world. Her grin is wide and shameless, her eyes glinting with playful challenge. She remarks on his expression, asking if he is really that happy, and then she offers him something unexpected. A chance at another one. Her meaning is clear, her tone laced with both jest and something heavier. The next day at school, Camo decides to stay behind in the classroom, intent on continuing his study session. The air feels still and supportive, the kind of quiet he craves when facing the challenges of past examinations. He reflects on his progress with a rare sense of satisfaction, convinced that he has finally found his rhythm. Each solved problem boosts his confidence, and he tells himself that today will be different. Today, he will stay focused. Yet unseen by Camo, Katabami lurks just outside the door. Her movements are light and deliberate, like a shadow slipping unnoticed across the floor. She leans just enough to peer into the classroom, her mischievous expression betraying her intentions. For her, the sight of Camo absorbed in his studies is too tempting to resist. Inside, Camo reassures himself that he can maintain his focus as long as the peace remains undisturbed. The classroom feels like a haven, free from distractions, until it isn't. In an instant, the tranquility is broken. Katabami enters the room, her presence subtle yet commanding, as though she carries with her a breeze that unsettles the air. She moves with the practiced grace of someone accustomed to getting what she wants, and her energy fills the space. Camo barely has time to react before her antics begin. She calls his name, her voice a blend of playfulness and persistence, designed to demand his attention. Feeling resigned, Camo responds, his tone measured but tinged with exasperation. He asks her to stop, to let him study in peace for once. Yet something about her demeanor catches his attention. She suddenly seems unsteady, her usual liveliness replaced by an unexpected stillness. Concern flickers across his face as he questions her. Katabami clutches her chest, claiming that she feels an overwhelming tightness, her heart racing uncontrollably. Camo's instincts tell him that she is lying. He has seen this performance too many times to believe her so easily. Her dramatic flair is something he knows all too well. Moments later, she begins to sway, pretending dizziness before crumpling to the ground in an exaggerated faint. Her fall is calculated, theatrical in its precision. Camo immediately recognizes the act. She has pulled this stunt countless times since they were kids, always exploiting his concern to gain the upper hand. This time, he reminds himself, he will not fall for it. He is no longer the naive boy she could manipulate so easily. But as he tries to focus on his work, doubt creeps in. Despite his resolve, he cannot fully ignore her. What if, by some remote chance, she is telling the truth? The room grows quiet, too quiet. Suspicion gnaws at him, compelling him to glance over his shoulder. There he sees her lying motionless on the floor, but something is different. She is genuinely asleep, her breathing slow and even. Curiosity draws him closer. He crouches down, observing her serene expression, so rare and disarming that it leaves him momentarily speechless. A quiet thought crosses his mind, if only she could always be this peaceful. But then he reminds himself, such calm is fleeting with Katabami, a rarity reserved only for these moments of sleep. Even so, Camo cannot help but marvel at how she can sleep so soundly, even on the cold, hard floor. Just as he begins to retreat, her eyes snap open, catching him off guard. His heart jolts as he realizes he has let his guard down. Before he can escape, she seizes the opportunity, grabbing his arm and pulling him toward her with a strength that belies her carefree demeanor. Her teasing expression is triumphant, her tone dripping with playful mockery. She revels in her victory, declaring that he has fallen for her tricks once again. Camo, exasperated yet powerless to free himself, surrenders with a heavy sigh. She insists that he accompany her, and despite his protests, he finds himself swept along. Their destination turns out to be a karaoke room, where Katabami throws herself into singing and dancing with unrestrained enthusiasm. Her energy is infectious, and despite himself, Camo cannot help but watch, captivated by the sheer vitality she exudes. The stress of the day fades into the background, replaced by the vibrant chaos of her performance. As the music fills the room, Camo feels the weight of his studies slipping away. For a fleeting moment, he is lost in the spell she casts, forgetting the challenges that once seemed so urgent. The next school day, Katabami strolls down the hallway, a light bounce in her step and a mischievous smile lighting up her face. Her mind hums with excitement as she considers how best to entertain herself with Camo today. The thought alone fills her with a playful energy, and she imagines the various ways she might tease him into breaking his ever-serious demeanor. Her musings are interrupted when a voice calls her name, halting her in her tracks. Turning toward the source, she finds Ushigashi-sensei watching her with a knowing expression. The teacher's sharp eyes seem to pierce through Katabami's carefree facade. With a faint smirk, Ushigashi-sensei remarks that Katabami must be up to her usual antics, sneaking around after Camo again. Her tone is light but edged with warning, and before departing, she advises Katabami not to linger at school after hours. Katabami watches her go with a fleeting pout before shrugging it off. The momentary admonition does little to dampen her spirits. Instead, it sharpens her determination as she continues down the hallway, her mind now made up about how she will approach Camo this time. As expected, Camo is in his usual spot, hunched over his desk in the quiet classroom, his brow furrowed in concentration as he wrestles with a particularly challenging math problem. The stillness of the room is punctuated only by the scratch of his pencil and the occasional sigh of frustration. The door creaks open, breaking the rhythm of his solitude. Camo glances up to see Ushigashi-sensei entering, her presence a surprising disruption to his routine. She looks at him with mild curiosity, asking why he hasn't gone home yet and commenting on his habit of staying late. Camo, in his typical polite manner, admits the truth. Ushigashi-sensei responds with a gentle reprimand, advising him not to overwork himself at school. Her tone is softer than usual, almost unnervingly so, and Camo feels a flicker of unease. Then, unexpectedly, she takes a seat on the desk near him, leaning in with a casual air. Her demeanor shifts further, and she offers to help him with whatever problem he's stuck on. The offer is kind on the surface, yet something about it feels off. Camo hesitates. Ushigashi-sensei's behavior is undeniably strange. She remarks that he studies too much, suggesting that he would learn better if he allowed himself to have fun once in a while. This sentiment is startlingly uncharacteristic for her, and Camo struggles to reconcile it with her usual no-nonsense attitude. He recalls her lectures, her stern warnings about the importance of discipline and how only slackers waste time. She has even admonished the class before, claiming that anyone who doesn't aim to master calculus is unworthy of calling themselves a student. And yet, here she is, advising him to loosen up. Camo's suspicion grows as he listens to her unconvincing encouragement. Despite the oddity of her words, he decides to play along, mentioning a specific problem in Matthew that has been troubling him. Ushigashi-sensei leans closer, her expression momentarily confused as she examines the problem. That moment of hesitation confirms Camo's suspicion. Her confusion, coupled with her uncharacteristic behavior, betrays the truth. This isn't Ushigashi-sensei at all. It's Katabami, poorly disguised and slipping into her usual exaggerated antics. Camo's eyes narrow as he observes her more closely. noticing the subtle flaws in her appearance, the slight misalignment of the glasses, the overly deliberate tone in her voice. Her act crumbles under scrutiny, though she seems blissfully unaware that he has seen through it. Even as Kamo pieces it together, Katabami carries on with her charade, apparently confident in her deception. He remains outwardly calm, though inwardly he feels a mix of exasperation and reluctant amusement. She may think she has fooled him, but he knows better. Still, Kamo decides not to call her out, at least not yet. Instead, he waits, knowing that Katabami's facade will inevitably unravel further. For now, he steels himself for whatever stunt she might pull next, bracing against the chaos that seems to follow her wherever she goes. Realizing that Katabami's disguise is faltering, Kamo decides to turn the situation into an opportunity for a playful prank. He presents her with another math problem, watching her expression shift subtly with surprise. As she hesitates, he reaches toward the space near her ears, pretending to notice something amiss. He comments on imaginary lint in her hair, prompting Katabami, still disguised as Bushigashi-sensei, to flusteredly try to remove it. Amused by her reaction, Kamo takes it a step further by lightly tapping the space where her tail would normally be. This action clearly unsettles her as she questions his intent, all the while internally wondering if his actions are deliberate or if he has figured out her true identity. Kamo, observing her closely, imagines the fluffy texture of her tail even though it remains invisible. After a moment of playful toying, he decides he has had enough and shifts to a more casual demeanor. Switching gears, Kamo mentions the idea of offering her nari sushi. The mention of food immediately captures Katabami's attention, and in her enthusiasm she momentarily drops her disguise, transforming back into her true form. It takes her a moment to realize her mistake, and she folds her arms in irritation, visibly demanding an explanation for how Kamo identified her. Kamo calmly outlines the flaws in her act, noting that her behavior lacked its usual precision and that while her choice of disguise was clever, her performance fell short this time. Katabami's irritation grows as she reacts sharply to his tone, her annoyance clear in her body language. As she exits the classroom, she mutters an insult under her breath and warns Kamo not to assume he has come out victorious. Her departure is punctuated by the swish of her tail, leaving Kamo shaking his head in amusement. Despite her words, he doubts Katabami will stay away for long. Moments later, Katabami's head reappears at the door. Her expression has softened into one of sheepishness as she hesitantly requests the inari sushi. Kamo hands it over while stifling a laugh, but Katabami's demands do not stop there. She proceeds to request juice and even fried chicken from the convenience store. Amused by her persistence, Kamo allows her to enjoy the snacks, watching as she eats with unabashed enthusiasm. The absurdity of the situation makes him laugh so much that he briefly feels a twinge of guilt. However, as the moment settles, Kamo begins to suspect that Katabami orchestrated the entire encounter, leaving him with the realization that, once again, the victory ultimately belongs to her. The following day, Kamo heads to the school library carrying a stack of books that are due for renewal. He approaches the receptionist's desk, where a quiet hum of activity fills the air, the scent of aged paper mingling with the faint trace of floor polish. Calmly, he informs the receptionist that he wants to renew a math book. Before the receptionist can respond, Katabami suddenly materializes beside her, a playful energy exuding from her presence. She greets Kamo with an air of exaggerated politeness, catching him off guard. His brows knit slightly as he questions her presence. Katabami, ever quick with a response, declares herself the president of the library committee, her tone carrying an unusual mixture of smugness and earnestness. Kamo struggles to reconcile this claim with the Katabami he knows, a carefree trickster who rarely takes anything seriously. The thought of her holding a leadership position, particularly one requiring discipline, strikes him as absurd. His skepticism is evident, but Katabami, not one to back down, insists she is serious about her role. To prove her point, she begins braiding her hair, borrowing the receptionist's glasses in the process. Her movements are purposeful but laced with her usual dramatic flair. Once her braid is complete, she adjusts the glasses and presents herself proudly as her serious librarian mode. She even strikes a pose, clearly enjoying the performance. Kamo, unimpressed by her theatrics, observes that her appearance has little to do with her capability. Still, he decides not to argue further. He hands over the math book, offering a half-hearted comment that as long as she is serious, she can handle it. Katabami, however, hesitates, unsure of the next step. Instead of dealing with the book, she flashes a thumbs up, an awkward but strangely endearing gesture. The receptionist, a younger student who seems accustomed to Katabami's antics, steps in to process the renewal. She gently reminds Katabami not to misplace any of the books and asks for her glasses back. Katabami, grinning, admits it was all a joke and returns the glasses. Kamo, observing the interaction, cannot resist making a pointed remark about how a library president should be more composed. Katabami waves off his criticism, brushing it aside with her usual carefree attitude and urging him to relax. Just then, a faint crunching noise breaks through the library's hushed atmosphere. All three turn their attention toward the source of the sound. Someone is eating inside the library, a clear violation of the rules. Katabami, initially poised to delegate the matter to her junior, pauses when Kamo interjects. He reminds her that as president, she should handle such responsibilities herself instead of burdening her kuhai. Reluctantly, Katabami gets to her feet, signaling Kamo to wait behind. As she strides off, Kamo takes the opportunity to apologize to the junior receptionist for Katabami's behavior. To his surprise, the younger girl assures him that Katabami is usually serious about her duties. She explains that Katabami has a knack for noticing details, especially when it comes to keeping track of who enters the library. Across the room, the source of the crunching becomes clear, a student engrossed in a book titled Pillar of Salt. Katabami appears behind the girl with a disarming swiftness, placing a light but deliberate hand on her shoulder. The student jolts in her seat, startled by the sudden presence. Katabami, adopting a tone of casual understanding, acknowledges how easy it is to want a snack while reading. However, she reminds the student that rules exist for a reason and eating inside the library is not permitted. Her tone carries a mix of authority and warmth, striking an odd balance that makes it hard to tell whether she is serious or playful. Before the girl can respond, Katabami's attention shifts to the snacks themselves. Her eyes light up with genuine curiosity as she notices the vibrant packaging and realizes they are new flavors. Any semblance of authority begins to fade as her interest in the snacks takes over, leaving an impression of a president who is as unpredictable as she is amusing. Kamo watches the scene unfold from afar, shaking his head with a mix of exasperation and bemusement. Despite her flaws, he cannot deny that Katabami's unorthodox approach has a strange way of working, even if it leaves a trail of chaos in its wake. As Kamo and Katabami's junior observe from a distance, the younger girl remarks on how Katabami has a knack for keeping the mood light, even when delivering a warning. There is a subtle admiration in her voice as she explains that Katabami's approachable manner makes difficult situations feel less daunting. For someone like the junior, who struggles with speaking confidently, Katabami's presence is not just reassuring but inspiring. She goes so far as to call Katabami amazing, her tone tinged with gratitude and awe. Hearing this, Kamo glances back toward Katabami, who is still engrossed in conversation with the rule-breaking student. For the first time, he begins to see her in a different light. The Katabami who often seems frivolous and irreverent reveals a deeper layer, someone who can step up and take things seriously when it truly matters. This realization settles over Kamo like a quiet revelation, shifting his perception of her. When Katabami finally returns to the desk, her usual carefree energy radiates once more. She announces that the girl from earlier ended up sharing her chips with her, delivering the news with an exaggerated nonchalance that earns an amused smile from the junior. Kamo shakes his head slightly, remarking that Katabami never lets an opportunity slip past her. The junior chimes in, expressing that this particular quality is part of what she admires about Katabami. As the girl leaves the library, Katabami waves her off with a cheerful farewell, the warmth in her gesture both genuine and effortless. Turning to her junior, she mentions that all that's left to do is lock up before she can call it a day. The junior thanks her for her efforts and takes her leave, her gratitude evident in the lingering glance she gives Katabami before disappearing into the hallway. Once the library is secured, Katabami and Kamo walk side by side through the school's dimly lit hallways. The stillness of the building contrasts with the faint crunching sound as Katabami casually munches on the chips she acquired earlier. Kamo's gaze lingers on her, his expression thoughtful, almost contemplative. Noticing his scrutiny, Katabami pauses mid-bite and tilts the bag of chips in his direction, offering to share. He declines, shaking his head, but the moment prompts him to voice the thoughts that have been brewing since earlier. With a quiet sincerity, he admits to himself that perhaps he had misjudged her. Just as he is about to vocalize an apology, Katabami cuts him off with her characteristic sharpness, catching him off guard. She teasingly asks if he has been lonely, her tone playful yet probing. Kamo hesitates before responding, admitting somewhat awkwardly, that he might have been in the way today, but his question carries a deeper undertone. He wonders aloud if this side of her, this balance between chaos and care, is simply how she always is. Katabami, in true form, shifts back into her usual mischievous demeanor, the serious moment dissolving as quickly as it had come. She jokingly asks if Camo feels better now that she has returned to her normal self, her teasing laced with a subtle challenge to his earlier assumptions. Camo shakes his head, exasperated but not entirely displeased. He tells her to stop wrapping her metaphorical tale around him, but his words lack bite. Katabami, of course, does no such thing, her grin widening as she continues to enjoy her chips. Their footsteps echo softly through the hall, a quiet rhythm that mirrors the unusual but undeniable understanding forming between them. Another day at school, Katabami strolls into Camo's classroom, her eyes scanning for him. His bag sits on the desk, but Camo is nowhere to be seen. Katabami's expression shifts as she notices the unattended bag, her mischievous side surfacing. The grin spreading across her face makes it clear that she is already cooking up a prank. Before she can act, Camo returns, looking slightly wary at her presence. He mentions that he is heading home, grabbing his bag with what seems like a routine motion, until he stumbles under its unexpected weight. His struggle is comical as he tries to lift it, his confusion quickly replaced by annoyance. From above, Katabami suddenly reveals herself, perched comfortably on his back. She scolds him playfully for calling her heavy, though her wide grin shows she is thoroughly enjoying his reaction. Camo groans in exasperation, but Katabami remains unbothered. Declaring her own punishment, she decides to stay exactly where she is. Since she is already on his back, she says, he might as well carry her all the way home. Camo sighs, resigning himself to the absurd situation as he adjusts his balance and starts walking. The two make their way out, Camo grumbling under the weight, while Katabami, ever the instigator, offers light-hearted commentary. Her laughter bounces through the hall, adding a strange charm to the ridiculous scene. Though Camo's patience wears thin, there is something unspoken in his actions that suggests he might not entirely mind. Outside, the fading sunlight follows their slow pace, Katabami's carefree demeanor contrasting with Camo's strained persistence. Their dynamic, though chaotic, feels strangely natural, as if her unpredictable energy and his steady resolve are two halves of a whole. Later that night, Camo sits at his desk, surrounded by scattered papers and textbooks, trying to focus on a particularly stubborn math problem. His pencil taps rhythmically against the table as frustration begins to mount. Outside, hidden in the shadows of his balcony, Katabami crouches on the railing, her sharp eyes observing him silently. She lingers there, unnoticed, a faint smirk playing on her lips as if she's contemplating whether to interrupt or let him struggle. The following morning, Camo wakes with a start, realizing he has overslept. He scrambles to get dressed, his thoughts racing as he panics over how late he will be. As he rushes out the door, Katabami appears seemingly out of nowhere. Her greeting is cheerful, as if nothing were amiss. Before Camo can react, she offers to show him a shortcut. Without waiting for a response, she grabs his hand and pulls him along at a pace he struggles to match. Camo stumbles behind her, barely managing to keep up, when Katabami suddenly disappears from his view. Confused, he looks around, only to find her perched atop a high wall, beckoning him with a mischievous glint in her eyes. Hesitant but with little choice, Camo follows her up the wall, his footing unsteady as he tries to maintain his balance. Once they are atop the wall, Katabami leads him along the narrow path with surprising ease. Camo's nerves are frayed from the precarious height, but Katabami remains unfazed, her light steps almost playful. Eventually, she stops and announces their arrival, but to Camo's dismay, they are nowhere near the school. Instead, they are in a secluded, tranquil spot surrounded by greenery. Katabami looks pleased with herself as she gestures toward the serene view. Camo, exasperated, slumps onto a nearby bench, muttering that he should have known better than to trust her. Katabami approaches, her tone softening as she asks if he likes the place. Despite himself, Camo admits that it is peaceful and calming, something he hadn't realized he needed. Katabami smiles knowingly and tells him she has noticed how hard he's been pushing himself lately, staying up late to study and looking exhausted. She says she just wanted to lift his spirits and make him take a break. Before Camo can respond, she guides him to rest his head on her lap. The gesture is unexpected but oddly comforting. As they sit there, Katabami mentions the quiz from the other day, recalling how troubled he had seemed even when she tried to tease him. Camo admits that he has been overwhelmed, wanting to do his best but sometimes overextending himself. He adds that being here, away from the stress, has helped him feel much better. With a quiet sincerity, he thanks her for looking out for him. Katabami, with her usual energy returning, tells him to prepare himself because this time she will truly get him to school. Before Kamo can object, she hoists him onto her back and takes off at a full sprint. The sudden burst of movement leaves Kamo both startled and amused as they race toward the school gates. When they finally arrive, with time to spare, Kamo thanks her, his earlier frustration replaced with a grudging appreciation. Katabami grins, declaring that her reward will be a generous helping of inari sushi. As she saunters away, Kamo watches her with a newfound understanding, her chaotic yet thoughtful nature leaving him both bewildered and oddly grateful. Katabami has just finished having gym at 6th period, thinking that it is such a pain. Her classmates also agree. Then one of the girls shows Katabami a picture of some food on social media which people say is crazy good. People call it Tappy Inari and it looks amazing. Her friend says that the restaurant is close to their school. Then they tell Katabami that they are heading over to class and that they are going to check out that sushi place from earlier, and they ask her if she wants to tag along. However, Katabami says that she might have to pass and she is just not that hungry at that moment. Then her classmates bid her goodbye. Later, after school, Kamo sits in the classroom, absorbed in his studies. Katabami, usually full of antics, is unusually quiet, her mind elsewhere. Kamo notices the shift and suspects she's not telling the truth about not being hungry earlier. Concerned, he asks if she's okay, but her response is dismissive, even though she doesn't seem fine. When he asks if she's having money troubles again, she admits she's broke. Katabami starts biting Kamo's desk in frustration. Kamo tries to stop her, but she only pauses, looking at the bite marks with a quiet chuckle. She admits it's just hunger driving her to behave strangely. Kamo asks if she's really that hungry, and she confirms it, explaining how a tough gym session and food pictures set off her cravings. She then urges him to listen to her stomach rumble, the sound so loud that Kamo can't help but comment on it. Katabami, growing more impatient, says she doesn't care what it is, she just wants something to eat. She begins chewing on Kamo's pencil case, prompting him to grab it back, telling her to chew on her own things. But Katabami, without missing a beat, starts chewing on his arm. Kamo is caught completely off guard, a mix of confusion and irritation bubbling up inside him. He stares at her, unsure how to process what just happened. Katabami, seemingly satisfied, lets out a small contented sigh before announcing that it's time to head home. Kamo, still trying to wrap his mind around the bizarre encounter, asks why she would do something so strange. Katabami shrugs nonchalantly, her smirk never wavering, and casually explains that he's a free meal. Her nonchalance only adds to his disbelief, leaving him momentarily speechless as they prepare to leave. Then Kamo and Katabami are sitting casually in a park, surrounded by the gentle rustle of leaves and the soft hum of people passing by. The atmosphere is serene, with the warm sunlight filtering through the trees and casting playful shadows on the ground. In this nostalgic mood, an idea pops into Kamo's mind. He decides to ask Katabami if he can call him by his first name, just as he used to when they were kids. To Kamo, it seems like a harmless and even endearing gesture, a way to reconnect with the playful bond they once shared. However, when Kamo brings up the idea, Katabami's reaction is far from what he expects. Katabami starts thinking about what Kamo has just said. The idea of being called by his first name feels strange and even a little uncomfortable. Moreover, he cannot quite understand why Kamo would want to do such a thing, especially after all these years. Kamo insists that it would be funny and nostalgic, something that might even strengthen their bond. He tries to remind Katabami of how much fun they used to have when they were younger, hoping to ignite a spark of agreement. Yet Katabami is not amused. Kamo continues to press the matter. Katabami's patience begins to wear thin. He feels a flicker of irritation rising within him. Finally, unable to tolerate the persistence any longer, Katabami decides to put an end to the conversation. He warns Kamo in a firm tone, reminding him of the consequences of pushing boundaries. The threat of the anaconda squeeze, a move Katabami had mastered in the wrestling matches as kids, hangs heavy in the air. Kamo, instantly recognizing the seriousness of the warning, backs down. Realizing that he may have overstepped, Kamo quickly apologizes. In class, Katabami behaves very strangely. His face clearly shows signs of fear and confusion, as if something is deeply troubling him. His actions are erratic, and there's an evident sense of unease in the way he moves. It's unlike his usual calm demeanor, and it catches Kamo's attention immediately. Seeing Katabani in such a state, Camo becomes concerned and decides to confront him. Without wasting any time, Camo scolds Katabani, telling him that his behavior is both foolish and odd. He points out that if Katabani continues acting this way, it could attract unwanted attention from their classmates, making him stand out for all the wrong reasons. Katabani shares that he forgets to buy the daily necessities and realizes he is running out of basic supplies. He feels frustrated and a bit overwhelmed by the situation, so he turns to Camo for help. With a slightly embarrassed expression, he asks Camo if he could shop for him. In return, Katabani promises that he won't bother Camo for the entire day, offering a rare moment of peace and quiet as compensation. Camo listens to the request, and after thinking it over for a moment, decides to agree. He figures it's a small favor to help out a friend, especially if it means Katabani will leave him alone for a while. Although Camo is initially hesitant, he accepts the deal, ready to go out and get the things Katabani needs, with the understanding that the rest of the day will be much calmer in return. After a while, Camo is seen struggling to lift a large shopping bag filled with numerous items. It's clear that the bag is heavy and Camo can barely manage to carry it. Of course, it is Katabani's shopping that Camo is carrying for him as part of their agreement. Camo is now on his way to deliver the items to Katabani's house. Katabani looks at him with a grateful expression and thanks Camo for being kind enough to help him with the task. However, as they approach Katabani's house, Camo is taken aback when he sees the path leading up to it. The road is lined with a series of small but steep stairs, stretching high and far up the hill. Camo stares at it, completely stunned, realizing how much effort it will take to reach the top. Katabani, noticing the expression on Camo's face, laughs out loud. He then casually explains that he forgot to go shopping 2 days ago, which is why Camo had to help him with such a large load. After walking up each step of the narrow stairs, they finally reach the front yard of Katabani's house. The house is surrounded by a beautiful and tidy view, making it clear that Katabani takes great care in maintaining his home. His yard is large and lush, with greenery stretching as far as the eye can see. The house itself appears to be a traditional wooden home, but its simplicity and charm make it feel warm and inviting. Despite its traditional style, the house has a comfortable and welcoming atmosphere, blending perfectly with the peaceful surroundings. Katabani invites Camo to enter the house. Camo pushes open the door, his arms full with the shopping bags he's still carrying. As he steps inside, he is greeted by Katabani's family, all of whom are fox spirits, Kitsune. The atmosphere is warm and lively, with Katabani's family showing great enthusiasm at the sight of Camo. They eagerly surround him, their arms wrapping around him in friendly embraces, despite the fact that he is still holding the heavy bags. Camo, a little surprised by the unexpected warmth and the presence of the fox spirits, smiles awkwardly but can't help feeling welcomed by their energy and affection. Seeing the chaos, Katabani quickly grabs Camo's hand and tries to pull him away from his excited siblings. Katabani gently but firmly distances them from Camo, signaling for his siblings to calm down. Camo, though slightly taken aback by the behavior of Katabani's siblings, doesn't feel too bothered by it. Perhaps it's because he has known since childhood that Katabani is a fox spirit, so he's used to these kinds of interactions. Camo smiles awkwardly, accepting the strange but endearing display of affection from the fox spirits, knowing that it's just part of who Katabani and his family are. After putting all the groceries away in the kitchen, Camo finds Katabani and tells him that there's no need to overreact to his siblings' excitement. Camo assures him that he wasn't bothered by it at all. Katabani nods, though he still seems a little concerned about the situation. He then mentions that he plans to cook dinner for both of them. Camo, thinking it's time to head home, begins to say his goodbyes. However, Katabani insists that Camo stay the night, urging him to spend more time with him and his family. Camo enjoys dinner at the Katabani family's house. Camo is served a variety of dishes and a lot of rice in his bowl. Camo praises Katabani for cooking very delicious food. Katabani then says that he feels the need to repay Camo's kindness for helping him earlier today. However, Katabani seems to have a mischievous idea in mind. He decides that the best way to show his gratitude is by inviting Camo to take a bath together. Camo is taken aback by the unexpected suggestion and quickly refuses. Despite his protests, Katabani, with the help of his younger siblings, insists and forcefully drags Camo towards the bathing pool without giving him much choice. Camo now finds himself in the bathing pool, still trying to process the situation. He is genuinely surprised to see that Katabani's family owns a private hot spring, something he never expected. At first, Kemwa thinks that Katabami's invitation to bathe together was merely a joke, but just as he begins to relax, Katabami appears out of nowhere behind him, followed closely by his younger siblings. To Kemwa's disbelief, Katabami is completely serious about the idea of bathing together. Before Kamo can react, Katabami wraps his arms around Kamo from behind, startling him so much that he ends up fainting on the spot. Meanwhile, outside Katabami's house, a mysterious fox spirit quietly makes its appearance. Its presence feels both eerie and enchanting as it observes the house from a distance. The spirit seems to have a purpose, though its intentions remain unclear. It lingers in the shadows, watching silently, as if waiting for the perfect moment to make its move. Kama wakes up the next morning with sunlight streaming through the window, warming his face and making his head feel unusually heavy. He rubs his eyes groggily, his mind still clouded with confusion. As he slowly sits up, he looks around the unfamiliar surroundings, wondering how he ended up here. His thoughts race, and then, like a jolt, the memories of the previous night come flooding back. He remembers fainting after Katabami's unexpected actions. The realization hits him hard, leaving him both shocked and utterly embarrassed. Kamo buries his face in his hands, overwhelmed by the thought of what might have happened while he was unconscious. Kamo immediately runs out of the house, his mind racing with confusion and embarrassment. He stumbles outside and collapses onto the ground, trying to process everything that happened. As he sits there, still dazed, a girl suddenly appears, coming down the stairs. She approaches Kamo with steady steps, and without warning, pushes him down, pinning his body to the ground. Kamo, still trying to regain his bearings, feels completely overwhelmed and confused by her sudden action. Katabami appears from behind Kamo, swiftly pulling him away from the girl and putting some distance between them. With a serious expression, he asks the girl what her intentions are, his voice carrying a mix of concern and authority. Kamo, still trying to recover from the shock and confusion, watches as the two interact. As his senses slowly come back to him, Kamo looks up at the girl, and something about her catches his attention. He points to the top of her head, where he notices a distinct feature: two tails hidden beneath her clothing. His eyes widen in realization. The girl isn't just an ordinary person, she's a fox spirit, just like the one he saw outside earlier. The presence of the two tails confirms her true nature, making Kamo even more bewildered and unsettled by the situation. The Foxgirl explains that she has come to meet Kamo because she is searching for her fiancé, whose name is written in a prophetic list of names. To Kamo's surprise, she reveals that his name is the one she's been seeking. However, Katabami immediately rejects this claim, insisting that Kamo is not hers to take. The tension between the two intensifies as they argue fiercely, each one trying to assert their own claim over Kamo. Their quarrel becomes more intense, with Katabami fiercely defending his right to Kamo, while the Foxgirl stubbornly insists on fulfilling what she believes is her destiny. Eventually, the two reach an agreement to settle the matter through a competition, a contest to determine who has the right to claim Kamo. Watching the two fox spirits bicker and challenge each other, Kamo can only let out a long, exasperated sigh, feeling utterly helpless and exhausted by the strange turn of events. Katabami and the Foxgirl are still locked in a fierce debate about which game to play in order to win Kamo's attention. Their argument shows no sign of stopping, as both of them are brimming with an extraordinary amount of confidence in their own abilities. Each is convinced that they have what it takes to secure victory, and neither is willing to back down. Meanwhile, Kamo simply watches them with a puzzled expression, unsure of what to make of their intense rivalry. He remains silent, caught in the middle of their chaos, as their bickering continues endlessly. In the end, the Foxgirl proposes an unusual game, one that she believes will give her the upper hand, a game of seduction. She suggests that Kamo himself should play a central role in this challenge. According to the rules she sets, both fox spirits will remain in their fox forms and try to charm Kamo using their wit, grace, and allure. The objective of the game is simple yet daring. Whoever receives the most touches from Kamo will be declared the winner. As the terms of the game are laid out, both spirits seem equally confident in their chances of success, each convinced that their strategy will secure victory. Kamo, however, appears somewhat bewildered by the proposal, unsure whether he should feel flattered or embarrassed by the attention. Despite his hesitations, the competition moves forward, and the two fox spirits begin preparing for what promises to be an intense and unconventional contest. Their rivalry grows even fiercer as they vie for every bit of Kamo's attention, determined to prove themselves the better spirit. Finally, the two fox spirits transform into their true forms, two small, adorable foxes. Their fur glistens under the light, and their playful energy fills the air. Kamo, despite his initial hesitation, decides to follow along with the game. As he watches the two foxes prance and play in front of him, he can't help but be swept up in the charm of the moment. The sight of the sweet and mischievous foxes makes him smile, and he begins to reach out, unable to resist their cuteness. With his skilled hands, he gently touches and strokes each of them in turn, running his fingers over their soft fur. His movements are fluid and precise, as though he's accustomed to handling such delicate creatures. The foxes, meanwhile, seem overjoyed by the attention. Their tails wag energetically, and they emit small, cheerful noises that only add to the delightful atmosphere. Each touch from Kamo sends them into fits of glee, their eyes sparkling with excitement. The competition, for a moment, appears to take a backseat to the sheer happiness of being petted by Kamo, though the rivalry between them remains as lively as ever. The two foxes transform back into their human forms, their appearances shimmering briefly before solidifying. It seems they have discovered an unexpected pleasure in being touched by Kamo's skillful hands. A knowing glance passes between Katabami and the Foxgirl, and they quickly come to an agreement. They will use clones to escalate the game. Without delay, they summon duplicates of themselves, creating a lively crowd of Foxgirls within the house. The energy in the room shifts as all the Foxgirls excitedly rush toward Kamo, their playful giggles filling the air. Kamo, caught completely off guard, takes a step back in shock. Realizing what is happening, he tries to flee, but the sheer number of Foxgirls quickly overwhelms him. Eventually, Kamo gives in to the situation, unable to escape the enthusiastic advances of the Foxgirls. They surround him, touching and playfully teasing him, their laughter echoing throughout the house. Kamo's face flushes a deep red, his embarrassment clear as beads of sweat form on his forehead. Despite his efforts to keep his composure, he is completely at the mercy of the Foxgirls' mischievous game. Their delight is contagious, and though Kamo might not admit it, a faint smile hints that he is not entirely unhappy with the attention. After a few moments, Kamo manages to stand up again, though it is clear that he is using the last of his energy. His breathing is heavy, and his face is still flushed from the overwhelming encounter with the Foxgirls. Yet he steadies himself, trying to regain some composure despite the lingering chaos around him. Meanwhile, Katabami and the Foxgirl show no signs of stopping. Their competitive spirits remain undiminished as they continue their rivalry to win Kamo's favor. This time, however, their playful demeanor gives way to a more focused and serious approach. The lighthearted teasing is replaced with calculated moves, each determined to prove their superiority. The atmosphere in the room grows tense as the two fox spirits channel their energies into the next stage of their competition. Kamo, caught in the middle of their fierce determination, watches cautiously, unsure of what to expect next. Though exhausted, he can't help but feel a mix of curiosity and trepidation as the two rivals prepare to escalate their efforts. Kamo is now faced with a challenge. He must choose which of the two is the real Katabami. To his surprise, both girls have transformed into identical versions of Katabami, their appearances indistinguishable from one another. They stand before him, each with a confident smirk, daring him to make the correct choice. Kamo narrows his eyes, studying the two Katabamis carefully. After a brief moment of contemplation, he speaks up with a calm but knowing tone. Katabami has pulled pranks like this on me before, he says, crossing his arms with a slight smirk of his own. She loves tricks and challenges, but there's one thing she can't hide. Her expressions always give her away. With this declaration, Kamo begins to focus intently on their faces, observing every subtle movement and reaction. He knows that somewhere in their demeanor lies the key to uncovering the truth. Despite their identical appearances, Kamo is confident that his familiarity with Katabami's quirks will lead him to the right answer. The two Katabamis exchange a glance, their confidence slightly shaken as they realize Kamo might actually outsmart them. Kamo successfully guesses which one is the real Katabami. He smiles with a sense of accomplishment as he points to the true Katabami, causing her to laugh in surprise. The playful tension between them dissolves, and Kamo turns his attention to the Foxgirl who had been part of the game. He steps forward and gently takes hold of the Foxgirl, Kuratsume, with a soft but sincere expression. "Kuratsume-san," he says calmly, "you have many qualities that make you captivating to those around you. I believe you have the ability to charm and inspire others, and I'm certain that you will find someone else in this city who is worthy of your efforts, someone who will be able to save you just as you hope." Kuratsume stands still, her eyes widening in disbelief. For a moment she is silent, trying to process Camo's words. The shock slowly gives way to a deep sense of emotion, and a wave of gratitude and sadness washes over her. She never expected such understanding from Camo, and his faith in her brings both warmth and a tinge of sorrow to her heart. With a final glance at Camo and Katabami, Hirotsumi quickly turns away. She leaves without a word, her departure swift and quiet, as if she needs time to gather her thoughts. The room grows still, and the weight of the moment lingers in the air as Camo watches her leave. Katabami laughs softly, her curiosity piqued as she watches Camo. Camo, however, pauses for a moment, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. He then reaches into his pocket and pulls out a weathered envelope, one that he had kept for some time. The letter was addressed to Camo, but not to him. He recalls that it had come from an elderly woman, someone he had never met before. The letter had puzzled him when he first received it, as it was clear the message was meant for another person who shared his name. As he unfolds the paper, Camo remembers the contents clearly. It was a letter that hinted at the existence of someone else named Camo in the city, someone connected to the strange events surrounding him. The letter had been mysterious, but it had also planted a seed of curiosity in Camo's mind, one that had never quite left him. He had never met this other Camo, but the realization that such a person existed made him wonder about the ties between them and what their paths might hold. Katabami listens quietly, her gaze focused on Camo as he recalls the memory. The thought of another Camo in the city fascinates her, and she can't help but feel intrigued by the mysterious circumstances surrounding this person. Camo, on the other hand, feels a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty about the implications of this discovery, unsure of how it might affect the future. Hirotsumi is also Camo's childhood friend. The reunion brings a sense of warmth to Camo's heart, and he feels a rush of happiness to see her again after so many years. It is a meeting that stirs up fond memories from their past, and he is grateful for the chance to reconnect. However, the excitement of the encounter and the weight of the situation take a toll on him. His head feels heady, and the exhaustion from the day's events begins to catch up with him. The bell rings, marking the end of the school day. Camo watches as students begin to gather their things and prepare to leave. His attention is drawn to Katabami, who is surrounded by her classmates. They greet her warmly, their smiles genuine as they chat with her. Though Katabami doesn't display the same playful energy that she has when she's with Camo, she seems completely at ease in this environment. Her demeanor is calm and composed, and she responds to her friends with a friendly and approachable attitude. Camo observes her from a distance, noting how easily she fits in with the others. While she may not be as lively as she is during their time together, Katabami's kindness and affable nature are evident in the way her classmates interact with her. She doesn't need to be overly energetic to capture the attention and affection of those around her. Instead, it's her warmth and genuine interest in others that make her a beloved figure in her class. Camo feels a sense of admiration as he watches her blend into the group. He realizes that Katabami's charm is not only in her mischievous side, but also in the quiet way she connects with others, making them feel comfortable and valued. The contrast between her behavior with him and with her classmates is noticeable, but it only adds depth to her character. Katabami is lying in her room, looking unwell and clearly exhausted. Her body feels warm, and she has developed a slight fever. Camo, noticing her condition, approaches with concern, trying to gently wake her so they can go to school together. Despite his efforts, Katabami doesn't stir easily, her energy drained from the previous day's events. It's apparent to Camo that her health has been affected by the intense competition she engaged in with Hirotsumi. The strain of their rivalry and the effort she exerted during the game have taken a toll on her, leaving her weakened and unable to keep up with her usual routine. Camo feels a sense of worry as he watches her rest, her condition far from ideal. He knows that she pushed herself too hard the day before, caught up in the excitement of the competition, and now her body is demanding the rest it needs to recover. As Camo looks at Katabami, he understands that her competitive spirit, while admirable, can sometimes lead her to overexert herself. He gently pulls the covers higher over her, deciding to give her the time she needs to recover. Camo feels a mix of concern and sympathy, wishing there was more he could do to ease her discomfort. Katabami finally decides that she cannot go to school today. Her condition hasn't improved, and it's clear that rest is her only option. Camo, standing by her side, feels a sense of confusion and worry as he looks at her. He's not sure what to do, feeling helpless as he watches Katabami struggle to recover. His concern grows as he thinks about the day ahead and how she might feel staying behind while he goes to school without her. Just then, Komaki offers a solution. With a bright smile and eager glint in her eyes, she enthusiastically volunteers to transform into Katabami and go to school in her place. Komaki's excitement is palpable, and her offer seems genuine as she expresses her eagerness to help Kamo and fill in for Katabami. Katabami, still feeling weak but touched by Komaki's enthusiasm, looks at her for a moment. After a brief pause, she finally agrees, understanding that Kamo may feel uncertain about going to school alone. She gives her consent for Komaki to take her place, knowing that Kamo's worries about her absence will be eased. Komaki, excited by the opportunity to help, quickly prepares to transform and head off to school with Kamo, though still a bit confused, feels relieved that there is a solution, even if it's not quite what he expected. Kamo is completely exhausted by Komaki's antics, which seem to grow more unpredictable by the minute. Throughout the day, Komaki's mischievous nature is on full display, leaving Kamo with little time to relax or focus on anything else. She spends her time at school doing things that are completely out of the ordinary. At one point, she tries to turn a fire extinguisher nozzle into a makeshift water fountain, spraying foam everywhere and causing a mess. In another moment, she sneaks away to the school's co-pond and attempts to catch fish with her bare hands, causing a ruckus among the students who are trying to enjoy their peaceful lunch breaks. Everywhere Kamo goes, Komaki's playful but troublesome behavior follows. Her antics require constant attention and intervention, as Kamo has to keep her out of trouble at every turn. Whether it's stopping her from getting into mischief with the fire extinguisher or preventing her from scaring the school staff while chasing fish, Kamo finds himself continually on edge. The endless vigilance is draining, and he begins to feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. To make matters worse, Komaki doesn't at all resemble Katabami in her behavior. While Katabami can be playful and mischievous, there is a certain calmness and charm in her actions that Komaki lacks. Komaki's behavior is unpredictable, wild, and more than a little bit chaotic, making it impossible for Kamo to keep up. He longs for the familiar and more composed presence of Katabami, but for the time being, he has to manage Komaki's constant antics, feeling more and more exhausted with each passing moment. Komaki tends to be more active than Katabami, her energy vibrant and contagious. She warmly greets everyone in the class, her cheerful demeanor making her seem approachable and friendly. With her constant chatter and lively personality, she easily draws the attention of her classmates, and her presence quickly becomes the center of the room. She talks to everyone, laughing and joking with them as if nothing is out of the ordinary. Despite the noticeable differences in her behavior, somehow no one seems to realize that it isn't actually Katabami, but Komaki who is greeting them. The students are so caught up in her warmth and exuberance that they don't question the change in behavior. Kamo, on the other hand, watches her with a mixture of relief and disbelief. He is glad that no one has caught on, but he can't help but feel a bit uneasy about how easily Komaki is pulling off the act. Still, he is thankful that her energetic and warm nature is helping her fit in, allowing them to get through the day without further complications. Komaki feels a surge of happiness as she experiences the school life that Katabami usually enjoys. She spins around on the floor with excitement, her joy radiating through her every movement. The new surroundings and the interactions with Katabami's classmates bring her a sense of fulfillment, and she expresses her enthusiasm to Kamo with a wide grin on her face. However, her excitement gets the best of her. As she continues to twirl, lost in the fun of the moment, she suddenly trips over her own feet. Her body begins to topple, and for a brief instant it seems like she might fall, but just as she's about to hit the ground, Kamo, quick and alert, reaches out from behind and catches her, preventing the fall at the last second. Komaki's heart races as she finds herself safely in Kamo's arms, her face flushing with a mix of surprise and gratitude. She looks up at him, momentarily stunned by his swift reaction. Kamo, his grip still firm around her, offers a steady smile, reassuring her that everything is fine. Komaki lets out a breath of relief, her earlier excitement now tempered by the brief scare. Komaki is startled by the sudden feeling of Kamo catching her, her body jolting in surprise. The unexpected contact causes her to shift, and in an instant, she transforms back into her original form. Her wide eyes reflect her shock as she looks up at Kamo with a mixture of confusion and a hint of frustration. She quickly gathers herself, her expression serious as she speaks to him. Komaki tells Kamo that he should only be touching Katabami, not her. The words carry a sense of clear boundary, and there's a slight tension in her tone as she makes her feelings known. Kamo, flustered and apologetic, immediately apologizes for the accidental situation. He had never intended to cause discomfort, and his face shows genuine regret as he tries to explain the mishap. Feeling the awkwardness of the moment, Kamo asks Komaki to transform back into Katabami's form, hoping to avoid any further complications before anyone else notices. However, Komaki's expression changes to one of slight embarrassment and frustration as she admits that she cannot transform without Katabami's help. Her ability to change form is linked to Katabami, and without her assistance, it's impossible for Komaki to take on the appearance of her friend again. Kamo, now realizing the situation is more complicated than he thought, feels a mix of confusion and concern. He wonders what they should do next, as the clock is ticking and the risk of someone discovering Komaki's true form grows by the second. Kamo is filled with confusion and unease as he realizes the potential danger of someone discovering Komaki in her fox-human form. His mind races, and he becomes increasingly worried that their situation will soon be exposed. He glances nervously toward the door, knowing they need to act quickly before anyone notices. Suddenly, there's a sound of the classroom door sliding open, and Kamo freezes in place, panic rising in his chest. A figure steps into the room, and to Kamo's surprise, it is none other than Oshige-sensei. The teacher's entrance catches both Kamo and Komaki off guard, and they both jump in surprise, their eyes wide with alarm. Oshige-sensei, seemingly unaware of the tension in the room, casually steps inside, oblivious to the situation unfolding around her. The moment is tense, and Kamo feels his heart race, hoping that their secret won't be discovered. Komaki, too, appears to be caught off guard, her usual mischievous demeanor replaced by a look of uncertainty as she stands there in her fox-human form. The air is thick with the possibility of their ruse being exposed at any moment. Oshige-sensei enters the room, looking around with a puzzled expression as she searches for her missing glasses. Her gaze falls on Komaki, and she squints, trying to focus her eyes without her glasses. The situation grows tense as Kamo anxiously watches, knowing that if Oshige-sensei gets a closer look, the ruse could be exposed. Thinking quickly, Kamo steps in, trying to cover for Komaki. He blurts out that Komaki is Katabami's younger sister, who is just here for a cosplay event. His explanation is a bit rushed, but he hopes it will be enough to throw off any suspicion. Kamo's heart pounds as he watches Oshige-sensei's reaction, praying that she will buy his story. Oshige-sensei takes a few steps closer to Komaki, still squinting as she tries to make sense of the situation. She eyes Komaki with some confusion, then tilts her head slightly and asks if Komaki ran away from junior high school, which would explain why she's here. Kamo's nerves heighten, unsure of how to respond. The question throws a new twist into the already delicate situation, and Kamo feels the weight of his quick thinking starting to unravel. Unexpectedly, Komaki decides to pull another prank, and this time she targets Oshige-sensei. With a mischievous glint in her eyes, Komaki uses her powers to transform Oshige-sensei's uniform into a sexy maid costume. Kamo is taken aback, his eyes widening in disbelief as he watches the transformation unfold. He is left stunned and speechless, unsure of how to react to this new level of chaos. Despite the drastic change in her appearance, Oshige-sensei remains completely oblivious to what has just happened. She continues searching for her missing glasses, unaware that her usual attire has been replaced by a dress that is now far more revealing than it should be. Her focus is solely on her task, and she doesn't notice the change in her own outfit. Oshige-sensei, completely unaware of the prank, decides to leave the classroom in her new outfit, still determined to find her glasses. She walks down the corridor, her steps measured as she continues her search, completely at ease in the unexpected maid costume. Meanwhile, Kamo watches in horror, realizing the trouble Komaki has just caused, and wondering how long it will take before someone notices the oddity of the situation. Kamo, clearly frustrated, scolds Komaki for her outrageous behavior. He tells her that what she just did is completely out of line, and he can't believe she would go so far. But she doesn't seem to care about the consequences or how much trouble her actions have caused. Oshige-sensei finally finds her glasses, though it takes her longer than usual. As she adjusts the glasses on her face and looks down at her outfit, something feels off. Her gaze shifts down to her dress, and it's only then that she realizes her uniform has been completely transformed into a maid outfit. Her eyes widen in confusion and surprise as she looks around, trying to make sense of what just happened. Kamo and Komaki finally arrive at Katabami's house, the atmosphere tense after everything that has happened. Kamo is still concerned about Katabami's health, remembering that she was feeling unwell earlier. He approaches the door, hoping to find her resting and recovering. As he steps inside, he is greeted by Ken and Kine, who are waiting for Katabami in the living room. Ken and Kine exchange knowing glances before informing Kamo that Katabami is currently in what they call boss mode. Kamo, confused by the term, looks at them with a raised eyebrow and asks what exactly boss mode means. Before they can answer, the sound of the door sliding open suddenly breaks the moment. To Kamo's surprise, Katabami emerges from her room, not as a human, but as an enormous fox, her body covered in thick fur. The sight of her in this massive fox form is overwhelming. She stands tall, her fur shimmering, exuding an aura of strength and authority. Kamo is momentarily taken aback by the transformation, his eyes wide as he stares at her. The atmosphere shifts as Katabami steps forward, her presence filling the room, clearly embodying the essence of boss mode that Ken and Kine had mentioned. Kamo is taken aback by the sudden appearance of Katabami in her massive fox form. His eyes widen in surprise, and a wave of curiosity washes over him. He hesitantly steps closer to her, unable to hide his amazement. He asks if this is her true form, as he has never seen Katabami like this before. Katabami, sensing Kamo's curiosity, glances at him with a side-eye, her expression unreadable but slightly amused. He tells Katabami that even in her large fox form, she is still incredibly beautiful. Katabami takes a deep breath, focusing her energy as she attempts to transform back into her usual form. A thick cloud of smoke begins to fill the room, swirling around her as the magic takes effect. Kamo watches with anticipation, his eyes fixed on the center of the smoke. However, as the cloud dissipates, he is surprised to see that Katabami has transformed, not into her usual self, but into the form of a child. Kamo can't help but chuckle at the sight of Katabami as a small child, her oversized clothes now comically loose on her smaller frame. Once more, the room fills with smoke, and Kamo leans forward slightly, curious to see what will happen next. But this time she has taken on the form of a middle-aged woman. She transforms once more, and this time she appears as an elegant adult woman, her features refined and graceful. For a brief moment she seems satisfied, but she quickly realizes it still isn't her usual form. The room fills with smoke yet again, and when it clears she has returned to her original large furry fox form. Komaki chimes in, her tone matter-of-fact as she explains that Katabami's inability to revert to her usual form is a direct result of overusing her transformation powers. According to Komaki, Katabami has been changing forms too frequently, and as a result, her energy reserves are now depleted. She adds that Katabami needs time to fully recover before she can transform properly again. Hearing this, Kamo becomes concerned and quickly tries to persuade Katabami to take it easy for the rest of the day. He suggests that she should stay in her room and rest completely to regain her strength. Kamo's voice is calm but firm, showing his genuine care for her well-being. Carrying Kamo in her mouth like a mother fox might carry her cub, Katabami walks gracefully to her room. Kamo, dangling in the air, is too startled to protest, though he can't help but feel a little ridiculous in this position. Katabami hugs Kamo on the bed, her soft fox fur brushing gently against his body. Kamo relaxes, enjoying the soothing touch of her fur until he drifts off to sleep. After some time, he wakes up and is startled to find Katabami has transformed into her human form. Now he is lying in the embrace of Katabami as a woman. Kamo is both shocked and puzzled, realizing this could happen due to his connection with the fox spirit.